Summon the Spectre.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 31 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I'm your host, JariSpectre, aka the Spectre, Jaden Mercer, inside of the pro wrestling ring, and I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Tuesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. You want to know what's baffling to me? What's baffling is that not that long ago, we were talking about how creative, both for WWE and AEW, were not great, but WWE definitely got the rougher end of the stick. What they were doing creatively on a week-to-week basis for Raw and SmackDown was absolutely god-awful and absolutely boring. That's the key word of all of this, boring. All of a sudden, we get through SummerSlam, and SummerSlam was a fairly decent show. Was it their best ever? Absolutely not. But it was fairly decent. Both nights were. Obviously, night 2 ended up being better than night 1, as a lot of these 2-night events typically are. We get through SummerSlam, and then all of a sudden, it is like a complete 180-degree flip. Right now, Raw and SmackDown is producing the best week-to-week television of the entire week. And if you guys have been sticking around on this podcast, which I thank you for, all 85 of you, obviously the goal, let's get to 100. And for those of you that watch me, you know how I was viewing the Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, MJF storyline that was going on during Redemption. And I said, I feel like it is getting unnecessary hate, but at the same time, I see why people are upset, obviously, with the whole MJF thing. And we'll touch upon that when we talk about Dynamite on this episode. And it's like, you look at like my stance on the build towards All In with that match. But then you look at what we've gotten since then, and it has been absolutely lesser than. And that falls on none other than Tony Khan. What he's done with Dynamite as of late has been absolutely god-awful. The shows have been downright boring to watch, even as a pro wrestler who studies wrestling. The matches, they're cool, but they don't mean anything. Meanwhile, in the world of WWE, they are creating storylines. It was like after SummerSlam, they hit a hard reset. Let's go different directions. Let's, pair people up. Let's have them build some tension. Let's make this shit seem real. And let's give some new faces some spotlight. I mean, you look at, obviously, we're getting Roman Reigns and LA Knight going into Money in the Bank. There's no doubt about that. But they got to create something different as far as a storyline goes versus, it's just a numbers game. They got to do something different than that. They got to have some real heat towards each other other than just that. But then you get Bron Breakker and Oba Femi. And that match is by far the most viewed and analytically acclaimed feud that's going on in WWE right now. And they haven't even touched. Outside of live events, which that's a whole nother thing. I know a lot of people online were like, why the fuck are we getting them wrestling at live events? It's to build chemistry. It's been like that since the dawn of time. Just because cell phones are a thing now people can see it. It's okay. Pump the fucking brakes. Relax. Analytically speaking, Oba Femi and Bron Breakker is your number one feud going for the rest of the year, depending on how long they want to drag this out, which I'm hoping they take time and care with this feud. Then we have the emergence of the charismatic Solo Sikoa. And what they did on Raw, we'll touch upon that on this episode as well. What they did on Raw last week was great. And the reason I say it's great, it's not because They handed Solo an L. It's not because Jey Uso won in a singles match, which we know how we feel about Jey Uso in singles matches. It's about not the match itself, it's about the outcome. With Solo Sikoa losing to Jey Uso and now having to report to Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, I'm curious to see what they're going to do next. How are they going to shake this shit up to make it even more different than the last run? It builds questions. It builds curiosity. It's a nice cliffhanger so that you can tune in to next week to see what happens next. And they've done that from the top pretty much to the bottom. Obviously, the tag team division needs plenty of work. Both Raw and SmackDown need plenty of work. But they've been doing a great job at having their stars be able to have storylines, like legitimate storylines, and have some animosity towards the people that they're wrestling. You look at SmackDown, what we got on Friday. The segment between Orton and Cody Rhodes, fan-fucking-tastic. We're showing a darker side to Cody, which is great. Obviously, he's still technically babyface, but he's showing a different side to him. Orton still being the vicious heel that he is. And on top of that, Sami Zayn is also getting screwed out of it, which builds his story up in the process. Obviously, CM Punk and Kevin Owens. That back and forth that we got, if you didn't know the story, do yourself a favor. Go research it. There's plenty of YouTube videos on it. Go research it. But for those of us that do know the story, it was fantastic. And obviously they can't, for legal reasons, they can't actually go into all of the nitty-gritty details of it. But man, what they did on Friday was take real human emotions and turn it into a storyline where they're going to work together. And they're going to put personal stuff aside to go out and have literally tell the best story that they can. And you can't ask for much better than that. You really can't. And I didn't even mention the fact of how big of a star Chelsea Green is becoming ever since the ladder match at SummerSlam. Chelsea Green, just off of one episode of SmackDown, has become one of the biggest baby faces on that entire roster. And that's due to how great she is. And it has a lot of credit to the writing team. I don't know what switch was flipped pre-SummerSlam and post-SummerSlam, but holy shit. Everything feels different. It feels captivating. It feels alive. Every storyline and every person on that roster that is currently being used feels important in some way, shape, or form. Which then begs the question over to AEW. What the fuck are you doing? We are, 2 weeks away from your biggest show of the year, your big WrestleMania, quote unquote, with All In. And yet, for whatever reason, now you're coasting to get to All In by having exhibition matches for your main eventers, as well as telling the story of the Continental Cup. Which I get it. You got to have matches for a tournament. And you got to have them on television for people to care about. The only problem is there's not enough people in this tournament that people genuinely care about. Let me ask you this. If I'm just going to read this off to you. We'll touch upon it more when we talk about Dynamite. But let me read off this list to you. Claudio Castagnoli. Does he have a story right now? No. Orange Cassidy. Does he have a story? No. Eddie Kingston. He is, I guess you could say he has a story, but he's barely been on television. So is there enough time to really care about Eddie Kingston in this tournament? The answer is no. Jay White. He has a story. He came back from injury. Obviously, he was sidelined with a minor injury because of it, but he is easily the big deciding factor in this tournament. Jon Moxley. Obviously, he's the reigning defending champion. His story is he's held that title all year. And if he's going to go out, he's going to go out in a blaze. That's his story. Hechicero. No. Nigel McGuinness. He's a commentator that also plays pro wrestler. Obviously, because of the neck injury, he can only do it so much, so I get it. And on top of that, he is also injured after his match that he had on Collision. Now what? Is he even going to be cleared to compete in the second round? I don't know. Nobody knows. And Kyle O'Reilly is the last one. Out of those 8 people, how many of them have stories? 3. Legitimately, only 3 people out of the 5 that remain have true storylines going on. That is a problem. I don't care what way you want to finagle it. It is a problem. If you're going to do a tournament, put in competitors that people are drawn towards. Not just throwing people in for the sake of throwing people in. That is an issue with AEW right now. And it's been reflecting based off of the ticket sales for All In. Are there matches that I am excited for? Absolutely. However, when you're looking at week to week, and we're going to be specific on that, week to week, they have done a very lackluster job of getting from Redemption to All In. And that's not even including the stuff prior to Redemption. Because all of this truly started at Beach Break with MJF and Kenny Omega. Which once again falls on the creative team and those creative decisions. If this was Will Ospreay and Kenny's idea, why? I get it from their POV. However, when you take a top heel in MJF, and now he's going to be lessened then to compete in a gauntlet match, a casino gauntlet, at All In, which he won last year, and now I guarantee he's going to win it again this year. Is it because of, hey, he is technically cleared to compete, but we don't want to throw him into a tougher spot in the main event? And we're going to use a gauntlet to try and work our way around it? If so, I get it, but I don't agree with it. I just don't. And then that's not even including all the other stuff that they do have stories, but there's not enough time or energy to take care of them. Like, obviously, we'll touch upon it. There's a triple threat that's announced for the international title. The match on paper sounds fucking fantastic, but is there really any story? I mean, there's a little bit, but there's not enough television time to tell said story. But I digress. It's just crazy how you look at both sides of the spectrum with AEW and WWE, and it's completely night and day different. And we're going to touch upon all of that on today's episode. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Tuesday, like I said in the intro. Also, make sure you guys follow me on all my social media platforms. Link will be in the description down below. And without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start with what happened on Monday Night Raw last week. Show opened up with Solo Sikoa. I'm going to kind of just skim read over all this stuff. Solo comes out and pretty much talks about the bloodline. Jey Uso interrupts him and says that Solo is not falling in line with the tribal chief. Solo then says, what does that even mean? Also, look what happened to you, Jey. You completely fell off after falling in line. And then every time they heard your music, they were happy, but now look at you. That all of that's out the window, and that he will never come back to the family. Jey tells him to shut up, and that Jey was the one who actually raised him, and the bloodline put him in the position that he's in. Jey then challenges him to a match in the main event. If Jay wins, Solo has to fall back in line. If Solo wins, the Bloodline have to leave him alone for good. Video package then plays about Penta and running through the Luchador tournament to challenge Roman on Raw. Obviously, we know, kind of based off of the tournament and the bracket that was announced, we know the finals is going to end up being Rey Fenix and Penta. And obviously, out of the two, you can only imagine Penta is going to be the one to challenge Roman on Raw. And that match, I guarantee it's going to be a must-see match because Roman barely wrestles on Monday Night Raw. I don't even remember the last time that he wrestled on Raw. And this is a perfect spot for Penta because now you're moving him up slowly to the main event scene, but at the same time, he's still kind of in that mid-card, so he can kind of be a little bit of both. And it will not hurt his momentum taking an L to Roman. So this is perfect for him. Then we have a match, Penta versus Laredo Kid in the first round of the tournament. Penta wins, obviously. It was a very fun match, too. Backstage, the Usos and Jacob fought too. Jacob says, "What the hell are you doing running your own play instead of Roman's play?" to Jey Uso. Jay says that he will single-handedly deliver Solo Sikoa to the Tribal Chief. Then we got a backstage segment with the Vision. Theory calls out Tozawa to a match. And then Braun asks Byron Saxton if he thinks Oba Femi is the future of WWE. And Byron says, well, I like him. And Brock Lesnar said that he is the future of WWE. And then Braun walks away and he says, "You sound like Paul." Which all that means is he's disgruntled about Paul Heyman taking a liking more now to Oba Femi, when in reality, Paul Heyman was with Bron Breakker. He thought Bron Breakker was the future of WWE, and we'll touch upon it again towards the latter half of this review. Next match we had Theory versus Akira Tozawa. Theory ended up winning to no shock of anybody. After the match, he kept attacking him. Braun then looks super, super uninterested in what's going on. And Maxine Dupree tells him to grab a chair. Officials then come out and stop Theory, but as that's happening, nobody's paying attention to Braun. Braun slides in, he calls for the spear, and right as he's about to run, Oba Femi's music hits. Out comes Oba Femi. They have this giant face-to-face just staring at each other. And right as they're about to get in each other's face, all the officials come in and they break up those two before they even touch. Fantastic. Next segment. Stephanie Vaquer comes out and she cuts a promo. Becky Lynch interrupts her. And as Stephanie is leaving, Liv Morgan then slides in and attacks Becky. And she goes for the Oblivion, but Becky dodges it. And then Vaquer takes out Liv Morgan with a clothesline. And then that's when Becky and Stephanie stare at each other again, which all this is doing, it's leading to a triple threat match between the three. And based off of the work that I know all three of those wrestlers can do and what they have in the tank, it's going to be good. And I hope and pray that we get this at like Money in the Bank or something around those lines. But this is going to be a nice little three-way rotation for the top of the women's division, which is going to be fantastic. Next match we have Dominic Mysterio versus Dragon Lee. Dominic Mysterio ended up losing this match to Dragon Lee. And then after the match, Big Cass attacks Dragon Lee. Javon Evans tries to come in and makes a save, but he gets absolutely destroyed. So this keeps building Big Cass up as this giant threat, as rightfully so he should be. I will say I don't like the fact of how WWE is treating Dominic Mysterio on a week-to-week basis. I think it's time to get that man something of importance and get him on the winning side of things. If we're talking about building stars up, he's still very young. And it would be nice to finally see him get more wins than losses, specifically on television. Judgment Day versus Sol Ruca and Io Sky in a tag match. Babyfaces ended up winning. There was nothing too crazy about this one. Bron Breakker and Paul Heyman backstage. This is where we're going to follow up on that. Bron Breakker asked Paul Heyman if he believes that Oba Femi is the future of WWE. Heyman says, I have great love for you, both personally and professionally, and truth be told, I respect Oba Femi. The man did everything he said he was going to do to Brock Lesnar, and I have to respect that. Braun said, that's not what I asked, man. Now I'm going to ask again. Do you think Oba Femi is the future of WWE or not? And then Heyman responds, I think you're starting to think that Oba is the future of WWE, and that's the problem. I'm going to keep respecting Oba Femi until you show me why Oba Femi is not worthy of my respect. And then Bron Breakker smiles and he walks away and he's thinking. You can tell the gears are turning in his head. He's like, okay, I think I know what I got to do. And so I'm curious to see how they're going to follow it up on this week with Raw. Obviously, I'm recording this podcast prior to Raw going up, so all of this might be null and void after the fact, but for the time being, that's just the schedule we got to rock with. But either way, I will be taking notes, and we'll talk about it next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then in the main event, we had Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa. Like I said in the intro, Jey Uso ended up winning, and now Solo Sikoa will have to answer to Roman on Raw. All of that shit that I just said, it felt very organic and it had a nice flow to it. Everything made sense. Everything had some sort of build. Everything meant something. And that's what we've been talking about. And that's what we've been saying that we need on WWE television. They are now at least on a good 3-week streak. And it's great to see. Switching gears over to SmackDown. We'll touch upon Dynamite at the end because both shows, like I said in the intro, night and day different. So SmackDown started off with Chelsea Green and Nick Aldis in the opening segment. Nick addressed the interim women's champion Chelsea Green regarding her broken orbital bone, which she did end up breaking last week on SmackDown due to the, I think, what is it, the fatal blow or the fatal flaw, which is Fatal Influence's finishing move, something around those lines. While initially threatening stripping her title, Aldis granted her a 30-day window to get medically cleared and to get some sort of protective mask. As that's going on, or actually right before all of that happened, she cut this fantastic babyface promo about how Rhea Ripley was in the same scenario when she was injured and she never got threatened to get stripped of the title. You look at girls like Liv Morgan, who never defended her title over 100 days. And after I have a facial fracture and a broken orbital bone, now I'm the one who's getting threatened to get stripped of the title. And she's like, that's not fair. And the fans were totally behind Chelsea Green. And that's when she made the comment to Nick Aldis where you were like, you used to be a champion. Your wife and your family got to watch you wrestle in a WWE ring. And I know deep down, you know that this isn't right. So all I'm asking for is to give me a chance. And as she hands him the title, that's when he gave the 30-day window to be like, all right, you can hold the title for 30 days, but you have to get medically cleared. As this is going on, Gunther interrupts the segment to mock Chelsea Green and to mock Nick Aldis, prompting Matt Cardona to then charge out into the ring for an impromptu match. And during this match, the match itself, it was nothing too crazy. Gunther wrestled in street clothes. Cardona was wrestling in street clothes. It just felt organic. And Gunther ended up beating Matt Cardona. But I will say, Matt Cardona, and I've met the guy, he's very, very nice. He's one of the most underrated people on that roster right now. I think it's time to get him into a solid role on television. After that match, the Irresistible Forces came out and they threatened Chelsea Green, who was, with her husband after he lost, and they were threatening her, and then out comes Tiffany Stratton to make the save. As this is going on, they immediately attack Tiffany Stratton, and poor Chelsea Green has to stand there and watch, because if she tries to get involved, then obviously she's going to get stripped of the title. She's not medically cleared. So she can't actually go out there and help her friend, who is getting absolutely just demolished, hands and feet all over her. So she's got to sit there and watch and just call for help, but no help ends up coming. And then that's where the irresistible forces walk away. And then Chelsea is then now not just attending to Matt Cardona, but attending to Tiffany Stratton. Backstage, we had Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and Tatum Paxley. And it was just kind of like one of those weird mini introductions to who Tatum Paxley is. I'm not too familiar on her character because I don't watch NXT like that. But I have seen a couple of things, and from what I've seen, I am very impressed. She is going to fit nicely on this roster. Then we had another segment between Nick Aldis, Cody Rhodes, and Sami Zayn arguing over the upcoming match that is scheduled, at least for them in the main event. Cody Rhodes during this showed a lot of anger and aggression, it's great to see, because ever since he lost that title, now he's like pissed, and we're slowly seeing the heel side of Cody Rhodes come out, and I think it's fantastic. United States Championship match, Baron Corbin versus Carmelo Hayes. Hey, they remembered that they have Carmelo Hayes on their roster. Isn't that just fantastic? It'd be nice to see him finally get his day. Obviously, it won't be right now, but this match was really, really good. Please, for the love of God, get the fuzzy U.S. title off of Baron Corbin. Give him something that fits him. Or at least give the leather strap back to him. Because, man, him with that fuzzy title just looks terrible. It looks terrible. And the fact that they haven't done it yet, it just begs the question, is Trick Williams going to eventually get that title back? Is this just a transitional reign for Baron Corbin? I hope not, because he's fucking great. But if it is, I don't know what we're doing. That's my one concern about all of this. After the match, Baron Corbin attacks Carmelo Hayes after beating him with the belt shot. Out comes Trick Williams to make the save. And as Baron Corbin's back is turned, Little Yachty whacks Baron Corbin in the back with a kendo stick. Obviously, he no-sells it. He goes to attack Little Yachty, but that's when Trick Williams comes in and hits the trick shot on Baron Corbin. Pretty much, not in a sense showing some alliance towards Carmelo Hayes. Obviously, they might go that route. But at the same time, I'm curious to see if it's going to lead to a triple threat match, or if this is just Trick Williams as a true babyface finally acknowledging Carmelo Hayes, and maybe we can get some sort of stable with both of them back. I doubt that that's going to be the case, but just kind of curious to see what that United States division is going to look like within the next week or two. CM Punk and Kevin Owens. This segment was fantastic. If you guys didn't watch it, go online, check it out. It's great. I'm not going to go detail by detail on this show, but man, you talk about true human emotion being used. Anger, jealousy, all of that was showcased in this face-to-face promo between Kevin Owens and CM Punk. And on top of that, it built towards this Sunday night's main event that they got for the WWE Championship in Kevin Owens' hometown. Obviously, I don't think we're going to pull the trigger and give him the title. However, it definitely begs that question of, are they actually, is it a possibility that they do it? Which, obviously, yes, there is a possibility that KO walks out WWE champion. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But what this does, it's the building blocks for what could eventually come. If they want to continue to roll with this, they easily can. Which I think they would be stupid to not do that. But either way, please do yourself a favor, go watch it, and then check back here if you didn't. WWE Tag Team Championship match. We had the MFTs, Damian Priest and R-Truth, and the War Raiders in a triple threat match for the titles. The MFTs ended up walking out with the tag team titles, and I think this is a great move, especially considering that Haku is their manager now. Obviously, we kind of know what happened with the whole Solo Sikoa thing, but I do understand and realize that there is a serious lack in that tag team division. And until they get that ball rolling to where it needs to go, I mean, you look at the names that we have here. Obviously, the War Raiders was another easy one, but they are the AAA tag team champions right now. And what other team, like a true tag team, do you have on that show? Damian Priest and R-Truth is not a true tag team. It was a thrown together tag team. The MFTs are at least a true tag team. And so putting the belts on them was definitely the right move. No complaints here. The Women's United States Championship match. We had JC Jane versus Tiffany Stratton. JC Jane ended up beating Tiffany Stratton to become the new Women's United States Champion. This match was fantastic. It definitely now feeds into what will be the main event scene. I know a lot of people, including myself, said there's something missing with Tiffany Stratton right now. I don't know if it was the babyface run became stale and boring. I don't know if it was just a lack of creative. But what this does now is, because Chelsea is the champion, and she already has the sympathy of the crowd with the orbital break, obviously we know she's going to get cleared to that point. But what this does is, in the opening segment, she watched the Irresistible Forces take out Tiffany Stratton because Tiffany was trying to go help her friend. And all she could do was stand there and watch. You don't think for a second that that's going to bother Tiffany Stratton? And then to eventually just turn her back on her friend and just beat the ever-living shit out of Chelsea Green to become one of the biggest heels in that women's division, and then eventually go on to win the title, and now that creates even more sympathy for Chelsea Green. The story writes itself. And I think WWE would be stupid not to pull that trigger. I think it's going to be worth it. But we'll have to wait and see what all that looks like in the next couple of weeks. And then in the main event, we were supposed to get Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes, but Randy Orton ended up getting involved, and it turned into an all-out brawl while Sami Zayn just watched in anger. And as all this stuff was going down, Orton grabbed the steps and he set him up in that angle like he did for their build at WrestleMania. He sets Cody Rhodes in, and as he's about to wind up and hit his head with the chair, Cody Rhodes low blows him, and the show ends with Cody Rhodes standing tall with all the officials trying to break up those two. Because Cody was about to grab the chair and return the favor to Orton, and then one of the officials jumped out of midair, snatched the chair, and pretty much pulled everybody apart. We're obviously going to get that moment of Cody Rhodes doing it to Randy. That would be the cherry on the top of the sundae. We know it's coming. And hopefully that will be the official switch of Cody Rhodes turning heel. But in the meantime, this slow burn to get there has been nothing other than fantastic. SmackDown was great on Friday. Literally, outside of a couple nitpicky things, there were zero complaints about SmackDown. They got one of the best main event studded rosters that you could ask for. Specifically, and we've talked about this last week and 2 weeks ago. And needless to say, it is truly paying off. And Raw has also done a phenomenal job of keeping their stars intact while trying to build up their young stars to then join that group. But finally, let's switch gears over to Dynamite. Like I said in the intro, this Dynamite was not good. It wasn't good. The show started off with Will Ospreay. He said that last year he stepped into Arena Mexico because they had Grand Slam last week, and he said that his granddad passed away, and sadly he wasn't able to see his journey. But there's a certain responsibility that comes with being a part of AEW, and it involves leaving everything in the ring every single time. He says he wrestled a street fight last week while Kenny Omega was sitting at home, not setting a good example as the World Heavyweight Champion. He then calls out Kenny Omega to come out to the ring, but out comes Don Callis. And Don says that he was there to exploit AEW back in 2020 when he was aligned with Kenny Omega. He said him and Omega ran through every single one on that roster, but Kenny thought that he could do it without him, and that's when he stabbed him in the head with that screwdriver. Callis said he was the one who brought in Will Ospreay to AEW back at Forbidden Door, and he said the next couple of weeks will not be paved in gold, but instead they will be paved in his own blood. And then out comes the Don Callis family to attack Will Ospreay. It was Archie B. Vice, Mark Davis, and Jake Doyle, but then Kenny Omega came out with a pipe and he fended them off. He then looks at Will Ospreay and he says that he feels everything that Will is saying, and his problem is that he just doesn't think. Kenny warned him about Don Callis. He warned him about Jon Moxley, and this is not the man I want to fight at Wembley. He said that he will not be there to help him at all going forward. Will then says he appreciates the help, but he didn't ask for it, and he won't need it. First match of Dynamite, we have MJF versus Nick Wayne versus Speedball Mike Bailey for the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet. Obviously, we talked about this in the intro. MJF ended up winning. After the match, he cut a promo saying that I told you all I was going to do exactly what I did. He says that Andrade is scared of him, and so is Will, and so is Kenny, and they will be getting on their hands and knees praying, but only the devil will be listening because he is the one true champion. I don't like this route for MJF going into All In. Obviously, we talked about in the intro, there are circumstances as to why that may be. I just personally don't agree with it. Next match we had Jay White versus David Finlay in the first round of the Continental Cup. And this was easily David Finlay's best match ever since he was signed to AEW. Jay White ended up winning, and now he joins Eddie Kingston, Claudio, and Orange Cassidy. Obviously, Collision happened, so we know the Elite Eight. Hangman and Brodito come out, and they're about to cut a promo, but Swerve Strickland ended up returning, and he comes out and says the three of them have nothing in common. He says Bandito lost to him at Double or Nothing. He says that Brody was laying face down in a pool of his own blood last time they touched. And he says Hangman lost the world title opportunity and asks what's his story now. Hangman says that he never took his eyes off of him and he shouldn't be talking about results because he has nothing to show for it. Then the Demand come out and they say that there's only one Swerve Strickland and there's 3 of everyone else, and that he's got no friends and nobody wants to be around him. And after he said that line, my immediate thought is, I know where this is going. And that is going to be Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston signing to AEW to align themselves with Swerve Strickland. And then from there, realistically, because they don't give a fuck about the Trios division, I could see all three of them holding the Trios championships at All In. That was the only thing I thought. I was like, okay, there's your sign. New Day are coming to AEW and they're going to be aligned with Swerve Strickland. Which it'll be neat to see how the New Day thrive in this newer environment, especially with a guy like Swerve. But obviously we won't really be able to tell until All In comes. We just know at this rate it's coming. Literally after this segment, the show completely fell off a cliff. Like, it was hanging on by threads, but as soon as that segment ended, this show fell off the face of the earth. Kevin Knight versus Chris Jericho for the TNT title. Obviously, we know that Chris Jericho is on his last legs as far as an in-ring career goes, but we knew he wasn't going to win this. Kevin Knight ended up winning. Chris Statlander versus Via Van. This was a squash match. I don't know what exactly this did for either women, which then bled right into Persephone and Shida versus Maya World and Thunder Rosa, which the heels ended up winning. Once again, what exactly does this do? What does this even mean for anybody involved in this? And then announced for All In, we had Kyle Fletcher versus Kazuchika Okada versus Konosuke Takeshita for the International Championship. Obviously, the story of Takeshita being a part of Don Callis' family, then getting excluded, and he's been thriving ever since. Kyle Fletcher is kind of in that same boat now, and obviously he has beef with Kazuchika Okada in that group. So this can only lead to Kyle Fletcher eventually breaking away from the Don Callis family and becoming a babyface. That's the only way I can see any of this going. I don't even know what you do with the title at that point. But either way, I mean, you can't really go wrong with a winner or a loser as long as that story gets told. And then the main event, we had Jack Perry versus Jon Moxley in the first round of the Continental Cup. Moxley ended up winning this in pretty much just a bloodbath of Jungle Jack Perry. This match did nothing for me. Honestly, this might have been one of the weakest Jon Moxley matches I've seen in a while. Granted, Jungle Jack Perry, he looked good out there, but obviously something's missing. And it sucks too, because it's just like, going into your biggest show of the year, you want everything to just be hit. Constant, just banger after banger after banger. But obviously that's not always going to be the case. But you shouldn't have to rely on just constant banger matches and, hey, here's pro wrestling. What about the stories? What about the shit that makes pro wrestling so special to begin with? Granted, the matches are special. You can have special matches. But what's most important is telling stories between these competitors. Like, granted, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, their story, it's going to look fantastic when it comes through a video package. But is there nothing else you can sink your teeth into from post-redemption till All In? Is there nothing left to tell? And now we're just going to do exhibition matches until we get to that point? Like, that's fucking stupid. That's absolutely stupid. Obviously, the Continental Cup will tell itself on the week-to-week basis. But once again, we talked about the issue in the beginning of this podcast. The issue is there's not enough people that have storylines or character development in this tournament. Realistically, right now, we're looking at a Jon Moxley versus Jay White final, or a Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston final. Obviously, we already did Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. We've done that. That's past. Jay White and Jon will be great, but what story is there? Realistically, what story is there? There isn't one. And you can't necessarily do that, and you can't call out specific people to eventually see them in the finals, because then now you're telling your fan base, hey, you don't got to worry about the rest of the matches. You already know what the final is going to be. And that's not the point of a tournament. So that is slowly becoming more and more underwhelming. Obviously, we talked about the International Championship. There's stories and character development going on in there. The only problem is there's not enough substance. That it is what it is. There's not enough substance there. Obviously, the TNT title, we have Darby Allin and Kevin Knight. That obviously tells its story itself. But once again, there's not enough there. Other than the heel turn, what else is there to tell? It's just like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like you can do more. You can do better. And that's realistically what we want. I'm not saying that just as a fan. I'm saying that as somebody who's experienced this. I do pro wrestling consistently. And especially as one of the boys, it's just like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm happy to wrestle. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to do whatever you need me to do. But it's just like, if you're not emotionally invested into it, it's not going to come off that way. And if it doesn't come off that way to your audience, why should your audience care? It's little things like that that can go such a long way in pro wrestling. But that's going to do it for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell for all notifications. We'd love to have you guys stick around. Let's get to 100 subs. That's the first goal. Let's get to 100 subs. We're very, very close. If we can do that, we'll do something special, whether it's a live stream, whether it's a setup reveal. We'll do something fun. So let's get to 100 subs. Make sure you guys also follow me on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JariSpectre. You guys can also follow the SpectreVerse page on Facebook at the SpectreVerse. And if you guys are into video games, make sure you guys go follow and subscribe to JariSpectre Live. That anytime I decide to do a live stream with video games, it's going to be there. Considering the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 beta comes out this weekend, there is a possibility I stream, but at the same time, I do know a lot of my time is going to be taken because my girlfriend is 1 week away from moving in. So obviously I got a lot of stuff I got to take care of here before we can cross that bridge. So be on the lookout. Make sure you guys follow the SpectreVerse page. You'll find it there first. Obviously, I've been paying a lot of attention this past weekend to NFL preseason and just kind of getting excited for football coming around. We will touch more on football season in the next 2 weeks. Trust me, we will talk about it more. But until episode 32, we will see each and every single one of you next time. Peace out.
Summon the Spectre.